Then I started learning all the softwares, Photoshop, AutoCAD, Max. So we were supporting our thesis, like my entire thesis, the travel, everything was done by me. So I never made a proper, attention to sketching or this thing. That is something that I still regret. If I go back to architecture and study now, I will spend more time on sketching. But still, I would have stayed in Chennai. Probably I would have known more about the local, practices, the nuances, like the materials. So I decided, along with my friends, they wanted to go to UK, Glasgow, Nottingham, and everything. This was happening. My master's program was very insightful, very good. So there was no theory, there was no exams. It was all self-learning. They introduced you tools, methods of designing buildings properly with daylighting and ventilation. Maybe if I had 2 or 3 more years experience, if I had a strong foundation of working in real-time projects, I would have made the masters, I would have made better utility of the masters. The average age of my class was almost 28 or 30. I did this calculation once. Whatever you are designing, the plans, sections, views, doesn't matter at all, because you don't know how the spaces are getting formed. Only if you know to make models, you will know how the spaces are getting formed. So third year is when I got my first computer in Celeron processor, 128 MB RAM, 128 MB RAM. Then I started learning all the softwares, Photoshop, AutoCAD, Max, lot of editing, video editing softwares, anything that came. It was all trial versions, student versions, you know how it goes. So I learned everything. So I was so obsessed with Photoshop that even for a 2-page assignment, I used to design it in Photoshop. I won't use Word, which is pretty much easier to do. So I was good in this thing. So I was good in software to that extent that I started doing visualization, 3D visualization for architects, contractors, and builders from my fourth year after training. Okay, so we used to earn close to 15 to 20K per month back in 2006. I'm talking about me and another friend of mine. So he used to do the modeling in AutoCAD, 3D modeling in AutoCAD, import it in Studio Max, and we used to do. And 3D Studio Max, that time we didn't have V-Ray. We just had the scan line rendering, but we were good enough for that time. We've done, I don't know how many projects, but yeah, for almost 1.5 year, we were regularly earning 10K, 15K per month. So we were supporting our thesis, like my entire thesis, the travel, everything was done by me, doing these, freelance things. And that's how I met a lot of architects, a lot of senior architects in Madurai, Chennai. That's how I got the opportunity to work with architect Mahesh Radhakrishnan when after graduation. So I did a freelance thing of rendering for one of his projects. So that's how I got to know Mahesh, got to know more, and that's how we started. So I was good in software, but what happened was I was always good in sketching or painting or coloring right from my kindergarten. So I've attended a lot of competitions, won a few and everything. But since the first 2 years of architecture, as I told, I was not in proper orientation. I never focused on learning the right skills, and there was no one to guide as well, right? uh, there, as long as you don't have an arrear, you are fine. That was the mentality. But I never knew that I should learn the art of architectural sketching, doing perspectives. It's not that I was bad or I didn't understand, but I never practiced much. And we had a very silly faculty. So I still remember, for the sciography, she used to show a book, which will have a ball and the shading will be there, and we used to copy that. Instead, it should have been like, we had a beautiful campus in Tyagaraja. Like our architectural building, we had two beautiful courtyards, long corridors. It's a unique thing. There are a lot of interesting pockets of spaces inside our department as well. But we could have been taken to the courtyard. We could have, seen the actual object and then, sketched it. It happened for our juniors. Unluckily for us, for that one semester, whoever was taking that thing, at faculty, she decided that she's going to let us copy. So we used to copy. So I never made a proper, attention to sketching or this thing. That is something that I still regret. Because even now, if I have to quickly draw a sketch in front of client, I am decent. I mean, I can convey my ideas via sketch. But I feel I could have, spent more time as a student. I would have spent, been better in sketching, uh, better in, drawing quick perspectives and stuff. Sometimes it's really embarrassing as well. So at Space Mush, my team, whenever I take a pen, I look at them and say, don't take this for granted. I am a bad sketcher. Doesn't mean that you guys have to be bad. You should learn, honing that skill. Sketching is something that, you should hone as an architect. In spite of all the softwares and everything, to convey quickly, you need sketching. And that should have happened in the first 1 or 2 years of my career in VR, but that never happened. And again, I am the only one to blame. I won't be blaming anyone. It was not, in my system, there was no orientation, so I couldn't spend time on it. And there were a lot of things, and the one softwares came, so I thought, okay, fine, it's as long as I'm good at one thing, it is fine. And I went full throttle in softwares: AutoCAD, Photoshop, SketchUp, Max, Ecotech. I knew a lot of softwares, editing softwares and everything. So I thought this will, compensate for the lack of, practice in sketching. But yeah, so that is something that I would have, if I go back to architecture and study now, I will spend more time on sketching. Sometimes when you see sketches of other architects, I'm not worried about the buildings or the finished, houses or finished offices or the interiors. I'm far better than most of them. But whenever they do a sketch or something, I still regret saying that, why can't I do like that? Why I'm not practiced to doing like that? Because I never practice. I don't like it, so I don't do it. I don't showcase it. But yeah, I've been thinking to work on my sketching for almost 5 years now. I bought a lot of sketchbooks. I've even scheduled saying that every day, half an hour, 1 hour, I'm going to sketch. I do it for 1 or 2 days, and that's it. The busy life takes it away from me. Probably I have to rework on it after this session. Then the next thing that I would have done is fixing a long-term goal. Like as I told, I was always indecisive when it came to taking decisions. Uh, like for example, my masters I did in urban design, and then I shifted to environmental design. So the same way, I wanted to do a lot of things. I wanted to get into proper sustainable design. That's why I did my masters in environmental design. But then when it came to work, I started my career with interiors. That's unfortunate. I got caught in a recession. But coming back, I still couldn't get full throttle into sustainable design. Probably environmental design or designing spaces with proper daylighting and ventilation is what gives me happiness. But there was no long-term goal fixed for it. I should have done it in my college, third year or fourth year. That's what I feel. Even though if it is not a proper professional long-term goal with milestones, people who attended the first workshop will understand. I should have at least known where I want to go. I never knew where I wanted to go. So that what happened was my training, my practical training. So the decision I made was, first I wanted to do it in Chennai. For for personal reasons, I wanted to do in Chennai. I got selected in Murli Murugan Architects. Back in those days, there was no Zoom and everything. Spoke over the phone, sent a portfolio email, and they were like, okay, fine, come and join. But then I didn't go there. I went to Delhi because four of my friends went to Delhi. சென்னையிலலாம் யாரா பண்ணுவா ட்ரைனிங்லாம் பண்ணால் பெரிய இடமா பண்ணும் டெல்லியில் பண்ணும். You go to Delhi and then after graduation you work in Delhi for 1 year 2 year, you can go to Dubai or Singapore, settle ஆயிடலாம். That was the mindset that we had. So I went to Delhi and did. Again, I did internship properly in Studio 9491. Architect Raman Shukla and Architect Anjali Shukla, they were my architects. They taught me a lot. They were more into corporate retail interiors. They did retail interiors for Adidas, UCB, Mustache. I personally did almost 20 stores on my own. They used to send me to new places. Like I once traveled on my own to Lucknow in a shopping mall for a UCB showroom. So as a trainee, they sent me. They trusted me and sent me. This was like third month or fourth month after this thing. They also did a house, Harvinder Singh residence somewhere in Gurgaon. So the high-end residence. That was the only projects that I had an opportunity to work on. But I felt probably if I had a long-term goal, if I knew that I wanted to practice in Chennai, I am going to practice in Chennai after 15, 20 years, probably I would have done training in Chennai itself. Because I got in Murli, I would have gotten many other firms as well. At that time, getting internship was not very difficult. There were hardly few architectural colleges, like 15, 20 colleges, and there were so many firms. So they were everybody getting an internship in an architecture firm was not at all a tough deal. Even in Delhi, I didn't apply anywhere. I went there. I walked into all the firms. I got an Orcop Associates. Orcop Associates is a big MNC at that time, even today. So I just walked in and they had an interview and I got selected. So it was very easy those days to get internship. But still, I would have stayed in Chennai. Probably I would have known more about the local, practices, the nuances, like the materials and the costing methods, or how construction actually happens, and maybe networking contacts, consultants, all that would have happened. But probably sometimes I think it's a blessing in disguise. I never worked in Chennai until I had 4 5 years experience. So I started my career in UK. I worked there for 4 years, and by the time I came to Chennai, I already had like 4 years experience in London. So you're not a fresher anymore, so you're supposed to know things. But I didn't know the local nuances. It was a tough start for me back in 2011 when I came back from UK, after my masters, worked there for 3 and a half years, and then came back here. It was a tough restart for me. I don't know if it is good or bad, but I felt, if I had known the nuances in internship at least, I would have felt more confident when I restarted in 2011. So that's what I felt. And the reason is I didn't have a long term goal. So since I didn't have a long term goal, the whole idea of doing masters itself popped up only in March 2007. I did my masters in March. I started my masters in March 2000. I mean September 2007. Like 4 5 months before I got my admission. I didn't even have a passport by then. So I decided, along with my friends, they wanted to go to UK, Glasgow, Nottingham, and everything. This was happening. Applied for the passport, got through a consultant, applied for an education loan, and we went. So we never had that orientation. I didn't have that orientation. Long-term goal fixing would have solved a lot of things that I did. I would have, reached wherever I am today, probably 3 4 years back. So you roam around, you get hit, you do trial and error, and by the time you figure out, it's all I'm. It's been 15 years since I graduated. Right? Again, I don't regret all the experiences, but probably a clarity in terms of long-term goal would have helped me a lot. That's what I feel, and I would have known when to do masters. All those things would have happened. Again, masters I did immediately, and the reason I told, I just wanted to go to UK. UK had this 2012 Olympics coming, London Olympics. So few of people who were already there, architects from my college, other colleges, they were like, it's a boom, and there's a lot of salary being given, and there's a lot of infrastructure work happening. So if you do masters, you can finish it off. So I took an education loan, and I calculated I can pay off the education loan within 1.5 years. That was my calculation. I thought, okay, let me take the risk, and I went there. And by the time we graduated, we had that recession, 2008 recession. Uh, if I had a long-term goal, saying that I have to work in an environmental design, using environmental design principles in the long term, um, probably I would have worked here at least for 1 or 2 years in Chennai, probably in Bangalore, or probably in Coimbatore or Madurai, any firm that practices simple, ideas of daylighting, ventilation. That's what I love doing, and that's what I've been doing. But because of this, I went immediately for masters. And the reason why I say those at least 2 years of experience would have helped is my master's program was very insightful, very good. So there was no theory, there was no exams, it was all self-learning. They introduced you tools, methods of designing buildings properly with daylighting and ventilation. That's what they did. So we used to do models. There used to be apparatus, experiments. Heliodon was there, artificial sky was there, wind tunnel was there. Uh, we did bioclimatic skyscrapers. Ken Young, the bioclimatic skyscraper specialist, the architect, Minerva, right? He did a building. So he had visited our studio in Nottingham, and my thesis dissertation was on daylighting, daylighting on the methods of arriving at a proper daylighting scheme for a new building. How to do using physical models, using simulations, using real time measurements. So that was my thesis on. It was a research thing, and someone from Cambridge evaluated it, and I think I got 69 or something. So the master's program was really really good, and we used to make models, physical models. So we did this facade, an environmentally responsive facade, where based on the sun path or the how much of sun gets hit on that, we customized each glass with frets, just etching marine vechkonga. It is like frets. So that percentage we calculated, we used it, we calculated it, and we made models for it, and we had to prove that, this one works at real time. The site was within our campus in Nottingham. So those things were really, hands on. So we design something, we make a prototype, and then we see the result, and we do trial and errors, right? So all those sort of things, I thought maybe if I had 2 or 3 more years experience, if I had a strong foundation of working in real time projects, I would have made the masters, I would have made better utility of the masters. That's what I felt, because there were a lot of people. I was the youngest in my batch. I was 22, and I was the youngest in my batch. The average age of my class was almost 28 or 30. I did this calculation once. So there were people at 40, 45, some at 30, 35, and there were people from all the continents. You had one from Brazil, one from Greece, one from Africa. There were a lot of people from Europe, UK. There were quite a few people from India. So it was a good mix. Pakistan, we had people from Pakistan, Nepal. It was a good mix. And Cyprus, we had a classmate from Cyprus. So there was a lot of parallel learnings happening, and they all had local experience. Right. So when during brainstorming sessions and everything, they used to talk about the practices, architectural practices in their own cities and countries, and I'll be like dumb and listening, because I had no experience. I had this only training experience, which was more of interiors, right? So I'll be like listening to them, because I never knew how architectural practice is happening in Chennai or in India, for anywhere. So I felt left out most of the times. And when you don't brainstorm and stuff, you are not looked down upon. The people or the students over there, they don't look down upon you, but you feel, slightly bad for not being able to contribute to the discussion. So I used to do, again, I was good in software, right? So they taught us ecotech, and there were CFT was there. So we learned everything. I learned everything. So whenever we were doing group work, I'll be the guy doing all the simulations for them. So it was good. And there was a huge library, and we used to we used to go to the library every day. Classes will happen only, once or twice in a week, 1 or 2 hours. That's it. Otherwise, we were in the libraries, we were in the studio, we were making models, we were, discussing. It was good fun. Probably I should have gone 2 years later. I would have had the exposure and experience. I would have made better utility of my masters. That is something that I did. And coming, when I talked about it, model making. At my BR course, I should have learned more of model making. Okay. So when I say model making, I think I did one model for my third year. We were doing some shopping mall or something. I did one model, and these models are not study models or concept models. These are for the final presentation, and more often than not, our juniors will help us out, right? And for the thesis, I made 2 models. So I made this intermodal transit center was my thesis. So the lobby floor, the building was of a snail. It's a doubly curved structure. So one junior, he helped me with POP, and one fellow helped me with the cardboard itself. He somehow made the doubly curved structure in board, and it was a site model as well. So model making, similar to sketching, needs lot of patience, and it reveals lot of things. If your model can't stand, your building will not stand. Okay, simple rule. If I know there's glue and everything, but logically, if you are not able to make a model, whatever you are designing, the plan, sections, views, doesn't matter at all, because you don't know how the spaces are getting formed. Only if you know to make models, you will know how the spaces are getting formed. So I felt model making should have, I should have spent more time in model making there. Because in my masters, luckily, at least for my masters, I had to do models, because all these experiments that I'm talking about, you guys can Google and see. Artificial sky is a setup where you are into a sky. I mean, it's a simulation, like the daylighting, right? When you go out, it's 8,000, 9,000 lux here, over here, if I'm not wrong. So there it'll be less. UK it'll be like 4,000 or 5,000 lux. I might be wrong with the numbers, but approximately this is the difference between here and, I mean, India and UK. So how does your building receive daylight? How many openings you've given? So what we used to do is, this entire room is like an artificial sky. So there's enough light which will give you 5,000 lux, similar to sky daylight. and we'll make a building model. We used to keep that lux meter 1 meter inside, 1 meter outside, and we used to form grids on the floor plan. So the model is pretty big, right? It's pretty big. So we used to draw grids, and we used to keep the lux meter at one grid. We used to note it down manually. So this is how much of daylighting is coming into your building. So we used to study it. And if there is, we were working on an office come studio kind of thing, design. So if there's not enough daylighting, we had to go back, take 1 or 2 more days time, redo the model with more openings, and have to come back. So it's a trial and error method. And these apparatus, you have to book it upfront. Okay, you have to book upfront, just like how you use your library books, right? So it was a good exercise, and I had to make model, and the model had to be realistic as well. So the presentations would be like, we used to take photographs of the models and present. So these are not just visual models; these are models that we use for experiment. And me, a person who's never done a model in a life, I had the biggest, toughest time for the first 2 months of my master's course, because I don't know how to make models, how each material works, choosing the material, choosing the gluing item, uh, uh, choosing the color of the final finishes you give. All those things you need to have good knowledge. Otherwise, my masters would have been very tough. Then we had this thing called heliodon, which will give you the sun path shadow analysis, right? So the latitude, longitude, we'll keep it on a plane. The light source will be shifting. Our building will be at a static location, just like how the sun works. Earth is there, then sun moves, right? The same way we used to do that. Based on it, we used to study the shadow analysis. It was called heliodon. So for making all of this, your model had to be very precise.